Want to welcome viewers to tonight's regular meeting of the Johnson City Commission for January the 7th. Tonight's meeting is being held electronically via Zoom pursuant to Governor Lee's Executive Order number 71. As a part of that, we need to begin our meeting with a roll call, and I'll ask Ms. Jennings to read the roll.
Commissioner Brock.
Present.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Murphy.
Present.
Vice Mayor Fowler.
Here.
Mayor Wise.
Here. Okay, now we've got with us Pastor Will from the Grace Meadows Church, and we'll ask him to lead our invocation, and then we'll follow that with the pledge.
I'm thankful to be here tonight. Let us pray. Father, we are grateful. Grateful for life, grateful for all that you do for us, the breath in our lungs, and for all the many blessings. Father, I come to you tonight with a heavy heart, with all that has been going on in the last days in our country and in our world. Father, we desperately need you. We need you in our lives, and we need you in this city, and we need you in this country. And so, Father, we ask that as these leaders here in our city walk through and manage things for us, we just ask for wisdom, for guidance, for direction, Father, that only comes from you. And Father, that you would unify us here at the local level, but also that you would unify us as a country around a common theme, a common thread, Father, that the division, the hostility, and all of the disunity, Father, that would just go away. And so, Father, I ask tonight as these community leaders lead, that you would give them wisdom and discernment in making decisions for what is best for your people and for your community. And Father, we just ask that you would just unite us for the betterment of the people in this country. And Father, I just ask for a blessing over this meeting tonight and all that you do. And Father, we just ask that you continue to bless us. We thank you. I thank you for these leaders and pray that you would bless their lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. And now we will stand for our invocation as soon as we have a pledge on the screen. There we are. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And so with that, we will move on to our first item of business. Mr. Peterson.
That being consideration of the minutes from your meeting held on Thursday, December the 17th.
Are there corrections or actions?
Move approval.
We have a motion.
Second.
Vice Mayor with a second. Will you call the roll?
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler.
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
I don't know that you call my name.
I
Did
didn't
you?
hear.
I called it. It was the computer was doing something. Commissioner
okay.
Brock.
Well, yes.
All right.
Next order of business is a presentation of a proclamation recognizing January as National Mentoring Month in Johnson City. Mayor?
Yes, sir. I'll read this proclamation. Whereas by changing the course of young lives, we can shape the social and economic future of our community. And whereas quality mentoring promotes healthy relationships and communication, positive self-esteem, educational success, avoidance of risky behaviors, and growth in young people. And whereas investing in their future pays off with a social return on investment of 18-1 through improved economic, health, and social outcomes for young people with mentors. And whereas Big Brothers, Big Sister, and Big Sisters of East Tennessee has been transforming lives of children since 1970 by enabling life-changing relationships that ignite the power and promise of youth in our community. And whereas this local mentoring agency has supported over 100 matches each year by partnering with parents and guardians, volunteers, and others in the community to help youth achieve higher aspirations, greater confidence, and better relationships. And whereas since the first National Mentoring Month was established more than 15 years ago, multiple United States presidents and Tennessee governors have declared January as Mentoring Month in an effort to celebrate, elevate, and encourage mentoring in communities across the country. And whereas Big Brothers and Big Sisters of East Tennessee has a goal of recruiting more volunteers based on the needs of young people in our community. And whereas the National Mentoring Month is the time of the year where community members are most engaged and interested in becoming a mentor. Now, here's the part you've been waiting for. Now, therefore, I, Joe Wise, Mayor of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim January 2020 as National Mentoring Month. Ms. Loudermilk?
Yes, I just want to thank you all for your support. We've always enjoyed all of our matches in Johnson City, and they're actually growing. That number's growing every year. So we just thank you and appreciate all of your support.
Thank you for your work, and thank you for the work of your volunteers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, your next order of business is the presentation of a proclamation recognizing January as Human Trafficking Prevention Month in Johnson City.
Thank you. Read this resolution. Whereas human trafficking is a crime where force, fraud, or coercion is used to compel a person to perform labor, services, or commercial sex, and whereas this form of modern slavery erodes personal dignity, takes away freedom and autonomy, and does not discriminate based on socioeconomic status, race, or neighborhood. And whereas, according to the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, human trafficking is the second fastest growing criminal industry just behind drug trafficking, and on average 600 to 800,000 individuals are bought and sold for sex every year. And whereas Tennessee leads the nation in its approach to addressing human trafficking with proactive legislation and comprehensive research, and it is more important than ever to promote awareness and community education opportunities, furthering a community-wide response in which everyone has an important part to play toward ending human trafficking. And whereas in Northeast Tennessee, the Community Coalition Against Human Trafficking works tirelessly to educate local communities about human trafficking and provide trauma-informed aftercare services to survivors of human trafficking. And whereas ithastostop.com is an outreach of the TBI encouraging everyone to take a stand and help victims, make use of human trafficking hotlines, advocates spread the word, and support nonprofits on the front lines of combating human trafficking. Now, therefore, I, Joe Wise, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby proclaim January 2020 as Human Trafficking Prevention Month. And we welcome you, Ms. Ivy.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for recognizing this important issue. We do serve our Tri-Cities area, and this is such an important thing when we have our leaders stand up and take the initiative in this fight against human trafficking. We have quite a few clients, both adults and children, that we're serving the Johnson City area, and we have expanded our agency. We now have a staff member who is present at the Johnson City Family Justice Center full time. And so we're looking forward to getting to know our community partners in Johnson City. I hate that we have to be in Johnson City, but we appreciate this opportunity and want to make sure to extend our services, whether it be awareness, training, or direct services to all those that we serve. So thank you for the opportunity to shed some light on this very serious matter tonight.
Well, thank you for being with us.
All right, your next order of business will be the presentation of a proclamation in support of the 2021 Martin Luther King Jr. virtual food drive. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Whereas Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a federal holiday occurring on the third Monday of January each year and is observed as a national day of service to celebrate the civil rights leader's life and legacy. And whereas in light of the COVID-19 health crisis, many of the usual MLK service activities across Johnson City, Kingsport, and Bristol are being postponed in order to focus efforts on the one joint regional event. Whereas regional planners have partnered with the Second Harvest Food Bank of Northeast Tennessee to host the MLK virtual food drive to provide food to our region's neediest citizens. And whereas in Northeast Tennessee, an average of 14.9% of people struggle with hunger in our 8 counties, and 1 in every 4 children do not know where their next meal will come from. Whereas the Second Harvest Food Bank, a local member of the Feeding America National Network of Food Banks, has distributed more than 12 million pounds of food to people in fiscal year 2020 through its network of food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and other community organizations. And whereas more than 66,000 individuals in Northeast Tennessee rely on food provided by the members of the Second Harvest Food Bank annually, and whereas the MLK virtual food drive began on Monday, December 28th, and extends through Tuesday, January the 19th of 2021, with the goal of serving the greater community and helping to combat a very real need. Now, therefore, I, Joe Wise, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, do hereby encourage fellow citizens and businesses of Northeast Tennessee to join us in honoring the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. through the MLK Virtual Food Drive to secure additional resources for the communities working to end hunger, one helping at a time. I welcome to our meeting Jonesboro's Vice Mayor and our friend Adam Dixon, and thank him for his part in this and encourage his remarks.
Mayor Wise, Commissioners, Mr. Peterson, thank you so much for recognizing this activity. And as you said, because of current situations, we're not able to do the activities that we would normally do, but we did feel like that this would be an opportunity to not only recognize the legacy of Dr. King, but also, again, address the serious situation that we have locally. Also want to say that our committee, we really felt compelled to do something, even in a virtual capacity, in memory of Miss Barbara Watterson, who was a part of the city fixture with the city of Johnson City. And so under Mr. Green's leadership, we're going to move forward and honor her memory with the activities that we have planned for 2021. So thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anyone with you that you'd like to introduce?
So Mr. Greenlee, Reverend Ed Wolf, and Miss Victoria Rogers, we all make up the Johnson City MLK committee. So if anyone has anything they'd like to say.
And if you don't want to say anything, we will say welcome to you and thank you for your efforts in this project.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you all.
Right, Commissioners, this takes us to the place on our agenda where you have a number of appointments to make to different boards and committees that work in concert with the Board of Commissioners. The first being to make 3 appointments to the Johnson City Board of Building Codes. This is a board that operates as an appeal board to decisions by the building department. And the membership of this board is specifically set so that you have a gas mechanical representative, an engineer representative, a commercial building representative, and an architect representative are the 4 vacancies. And I think you have 3 applicants that meet the criteria of 3 of those positions. In your packet, there currently has not been interest expressed by an architect. So, Mayor?
Thank you, sir. We have a dozen of these boards and commissions, and Mr. Peterson, I suspect it would be most efficient if we could identify the slate for those we're going to appoint and do the roll call once. Does that seem appropriate, or do we need to do a roll call on each of the 12?
It's
Let's
probably.
Go ahead.
It's probably going to be easier for Janet to track if we do a roll call for each board.
Okay.
I would prefer that too.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's focus our attention on the Board of Building Codes.
I would move to appoint Bill Murray as the engineer, Kelly Ritzko as the gas and mechanical, and Jim Green in the commercial buildings.
I will second that.
Are there other nominations?
And you said there's Hobart Adams. He doesn't meet the 4th seat that's open. Is that correct? It looks like there's 4 seats available, just for my clarification on the matrix.
I know there's one architect position, and I don't believe he's an architect.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have 3 names in nomination, and the 4th position, we don't have a qualified applicant. If there are no further nominations, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
and Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Your next board is to make 3 appointments to the Board of Dwelling Standards and Review. You've got 3 appointments to make. Mr. Charles Spencer, his term is expired. He has not applied for reappointment. Teresa McAdams' term has expired. She has not reapplied for appointment. The term of Dave Jenny has expired, and he has expressed interest and applied for reappointment.
Mayor, I would like to make a recommendation, if you're open for that now.
I certainly am.
Okay, I would like to recommend Jonna Robbins. Don't have the first name here on Jennifer Hyder and Dave Jenny.
Is that in the form of a nomination for those appointments?
Yeah, I don't know how are we going to make a
Or are there
formal motion and get a second? Because a minute ago, then you asked for other nominations, so I'm not sure.
Well, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
I wasn't shutting somebody else out who would later say I had wanted to nominate somebody different.
Okay, I will make that in the form of a motion.
Okay. We have a motion with the 3 names for appointment. Are there others that people want to see considered?
Yeah, Mayor Wise, I do agree with Jennifer Hyder, and but there's a name in our packet here and that would really serve this board well, and that's Micah Colley.
Yeah, I know Micah and his background in his work and then in the community. I know that he would be a good member as well, for sure.
But he's applied for the housing, what's he applied for?
He's got interest in that, the Housing
Everything,
Authority, and the Housing and Community Development Advisory Board. And Mike is somebody that I've encouraged to apply. He's not served on anything, as you know, he's up and coming in the community, and this is his first time applying for activity within the community at the city level.
Just looking at this, his first choice was the Housing and Community Development Advisory Board. So I didn't know if we wanted to try him on multiple or give him his first choice.
This board,
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if he ranked the order, but dwelling standards was the last one on his list.
Yeah, I don't know that they do rank them.
Well, they ranked their first choice for sure.
Right.
I mean, on other ones, it says first and second choice.
Yeah, first, yeah.
That's what I had him listed, to give him his first choice, since he really wanted to be on something. And I thought, since we've encouraged him to apply for things, it would be nice to give him his first choice.
Commissioner Murphy.
Yeah, I agree with that. That would work. So I'm fine with that.
Okay. So we have a motion with 3 names from Commissioner Brock. Are there any other names that people want to see put into consideration? If not, then we'll call the roll.
Do you want to ask for a second and then?
Oh, yeah, we should do that. Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Would anybody like to second the nominations that Commissioner Brock put forward?
I'll second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Okay.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself.
That's okay. It's a team, right? Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Your next board is to make appointments to the Civil Service Commission. I would remind you, in this particular board, the police department and the fire department hold elections and make a selection to recommend to you to represent those particular departments. And then the other 2 representatives are representatives of the city commission to be made at your choosing. You can decide to accept or reject the recommendations coming forward from police and fire. The police department has recommended Bill Adams, and the fire department has recommended Ricky Clowers. Both of those gentlemen currently serve on the board and have expressed interest in continuing to serve. The other applicants that have expressed interest to represent the city commission's 2 appointments are listed in your packet.
Mr. Peterson, something, I was going to call one of the candidates. I do have a little bit of concern because we don't really have any women on the Civil Service Board. So I was interested in talking with Ms. Hughes, but there's no phone number or contact information on the application. So I couldn't, I had no way of getting in touch with her. And I like the application form, but it would really be helpful if we want to contact some of these applicants and have a discussion with them, if we can get their names on there.
Yes, ma'am. I wasn't aware of that, but we will certainly.
Yeah, phone number and email would be great.
Yes, ma'am.
So with respect, Mr. Peterson, we are formalizing the appointments of the police and fire representatives, or are those already?
Those are
Set.
purely recommendations to the city commission.
Okay.
For approval, you can accept, or you can ask them to go back and come forward with a different recommendation, either way.
I see. So we are appointing all 4, but 2 of them have to have gone through that process.
Yes, sir.
And so the other two, go ahead, Commissioner.
Mayor, why don't we divide them up and do the two from fire and police, and then the two more at large that we appoint, then we can have more discussion on those two.
Okay. Ms. Jennings, would you call well, we need a motion and a second to sort of ratify the appointments of Adams and Clowers.
I will make that as a motion.
Vice Mayor, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Brock, we have a motion and a second. Would you call the roll on the first two appointments?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes. So that leaves us with the two Board of Commission appointments. How would the commission like to approach those?
Looking through, Mr. Dorton has just been on for 1.5 terms, but Mr. Dawson has been on for 3.5 terms already. And I know Commissioner Brock had some, I don't know if you ever talked to or got in touch with or thought Ms. Hughes would be a good candidate.
Yeah, no, I did not, but she does have a criminal justice background, for sure. And yeah, I would love to nominate Ms. Hughes to appoint to the Civil Service Board.
Now, if I thought I understood Pete to say that the fire department and the police department recommended 4 people, and that would be Bill Adams, Ricky Clowers, Ron Dawson, and Jim Dorton. Is that right, or did I misunderstand that?
No, sir. The fire department recommended Ricky Clowers. The police department recommended Bones Adams. And then the other two, they have no involvement or recommendation.
Aren't there,
All right.
there are 5 on this board, though. Who's the 5th one?
On Dawson, I think.
There are only 4 listed. There are only 4 listed on
Bill
the roster.
the 5th one.
What's that,
Pardon me?
please? Pete, would you repeat that?
Yes, sir. Let me. You have Ron Dawson, Jim Dorton, Ricky Clowers, Bill Adams, and Mr. Mitchell is the 5th person on that board.
They need to update their roster then.
Because he's not listed anywhere in here.
He is not listed, but he is the 5th member on that board. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, I made a motion that we appoint Ms. Hughes, Neva Hughes.
Okay. Are there other, we have 2 spots to fill.
Right.
So do other commissioners want to make a nomination?
I would move for Mr. Dorton to continue since he's only been on for 1.5 terms.
Others?
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the 2 nominated.
Okay.
To fill those 2 seats.
All right, that probably works better. I realized where you were going, Commissioner Brock. So we have a motion to appoint Hughes and Dorton. And is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Brock. Would you call the roll, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Your next appointments are to make 2 appointments to the Golf Advisory Board.
I'll make that. Well, first, before I make a nomination, the number 2 under Kevin Van Noy, does that mean that's a 2nd term, or what's the parenthesis, the 2 in the parentheses represent?
I believe he served 2 terms. I think that's what that may indicate.
So he'd be looking for a 3rd term?
3rd term, yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to nominate Matt Adams.
Just Kevin Benoist, the golf coach at Science Hill.
Yeah, I'm really going to support him for a third term because, I mean, there's such a big program for our schools at the golf course. And I've gone to many of the meetings, and he's a great addition to it to kind of help bridge all that with the golf committee. So that would be my recommendation, and Adams.
And we can have a third. I would nominate Bo Deaton. He plays there quite a bit too, and he's active in our community and a local pastor here. So,
Mayor Wise, I nominate Gabriel Logan. Back to a point that Commissioner Brock made. We need to be mindful to have diverse people of diversity that lead us in the city to get a better overall perspective. And Gabriel Logan comes from a really good place in the community that can share perspective we need on this committee at large.
You know, it says he's applied for the Planning Commission, although his name doesn't appear on the Planning Commission document.
On the matrix, it says for some reason that's the, is that the county seat? Because it's one seat, so he's ineligible for Planning Commission.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
But he does have other items that he's interested in, whereas with Matt Adams, this is the first application of service of any kind, and the only one that he has applied for. Not that that necessarily means that should be the reason why to appoint him. However, you know, I think encouraging people to be a part of, you know, city involvement and advisory boards, it was good and might lead them all into, you know, into other boards and committees.
It does say in the text of his application, he's applying for the Golf Advisory Board. You know what we could do, and I'm sure Coach Van Oy would kind of act as a advisor, you know, not a member of the Golf Advisory Board, but as an advisor and a link, so we could get some new people on there. And I don't have a problem with withdrawing that and see how we can work that out. I mean, he's there all the time anyway, so he's going to be talking and working with the golf course on behalf of the students.
So let's see, I still think we have Bo Deaton's name in circulation. We have 2 appointments, and I think we've got 3 names still.
That's correct.
Okay.
This is a pretty small board. There are only 5 members to it.
Can you, excuse me,
Charlie,
Mayor?
you're on here, aren't you?
So I'm just a staff.
Yeah,
attendee.
no, yeah, but why is it such a small board?
Well, it's basically was revised a few years, well, about 12 years ago, it was revised to have 5 city residents on the board. It used to be larger. It was the Greens Committee, as many of you remember. And when we had Buffalo Valley Golf Course and Pine Oaks, but it basically was felt just to be smaller, just to be more manageable. Frankly, I think that was the intent back 12 years ago, and it's been the same since.
Commissioner Murphy, you were asking a question.
Yes, sir. Will you please echo the 3 names that are in circulation for us all?
I believe it was Bo Deaton and Gabriel Logan and Adams, wasn't it, Ms. Jennings?
Yes, Matt Adams.
Okay, thank you.
But this being an advisory board versus a commission or a board of like the IDB with certain, you know, statutory pieces, it's kind of, to Jenny's point, would we have the authority or ability to increase it from 5 to 7?
Yes, all you have to do is amend the bylaws, and the bylaws state 5, and that was a commission approved bylaws. So staff can't expand it or contract it. It would have to be a commission authorization to expand it. And
with Pine Oaks having such great interest and really on an upswing, pun intended, it might be worthwhile. I'm not usually one to make boards larger, and I totally get the intent of it being smaller, but it may be worthwhile to consider adding Mr. Deaton, Adams, keeping Mr. Van Noy, and who was it that is on the second page? Mr. Logan, correct? And that would get us up to 7.
If I may make a suggestion, some of the bylaws of some of our advisory boards do have a provision that the membership could be no less than nor more than. So you could say this board, you could expand the board to the membership would be no less than 5, but no more than the stated number. So that's an option that some other boards currently have in their bylaws.
I'd be in favor of that, 5 to 7 for the Gulf Advisory if the rest of the commission was, and I think that would satisfy the desires of those that have applied as well. And then we're also encompassing the diversity and also including on top of that, additional new people from the community and involvement with city decision making.
We just don't have a woman on it, but nobody applied, but I attend a lot of times, give a lot of input. Charlie, they'll have to get a bigger meeting place.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Vice Mayor, I do have Bo Deaton down for the Senior Foundation. Do you think he would want, two committees?
I think we would want that, but we could probably leave him off for right now to stay in the board numbers until we change it and then add later on.
Okay. I think that's good. Yeah. Yeah, because he's definitely one of their recommendations on the Senior Foundation.
Right.
So I guess we would be looking at 2 motions, one to change the bylaws to a range of no less than 5 and no more than 7, and then a second one to nominate or to appoint 2 members at this time, correct?
Correct. And then we'd come back after.
Well, I'll
make the change.
I'll make the motion to amend the bylaws to reflect a membership of no less than 5, but no greater than 7.
I'll second.
Ms. Jennings, I'm wondering, can we not appoint the names we want and adjust the size in one motion?
That I don't know. I don't know if you need to have a proposed new set of bylaws in front of you to vote on first, and then appoint. You also have the option in these circumstances, if you have a slate of nominees and you have more nominees than you have slots, we can do roll call and each commissioner call out the 2 or 3 names they vote for. That is another way to go about making a selection.
I think the safest thing would be to wait for the bylaws as far as adding the additional 2 members and move forward with the vote on the bylaws and then a nomination for 2 currently.
Yeah, I think that's what we ought to do. And we can come back with Van Noy and Deaton after the bylaws are adjusted then.
I can bring them back at the next commission meeting, have them on the agenda, the proposed amendment.
Let's do the bylaws and then come back and do the 2.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, if I may add another historical fact here. for a number of years, Fred Warren served on the golf board in an ex officio capacity due to the fact that the ETSU golf team used the city facilities, and it was found to be helpful to have his input into the golf board. I just mentioned that so that if you had some desire to put an ex officio position into those new bylaws that would always be occupied by the Science Hill golf coach, then that may simplify things going forward if you choose to do that.
I suppose Mr. Stahl could bring bylaws revisions that do either of those things.
Yeah.
Whether we're, I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I like that idea. It would be a non-voting role, which I think would be really good because it would be more of on an advisory capacity. And yeah, whoever is in that slot.
So we, I think, have a motion to seek a revision to the bylaws of the golf advisory to allow for an increased number. And we have a second, I believe.
Commissioner Brock, yes.
Yeah, but I would go back and also consider Pete's recommendation that we amend the bylaws to no less than 5 and no greater than 7, and with an additional ex officio position of the Science Hill golf coach, varsity golf coach.
Commissioner Hunter, would you accept that as a?
Sure.
Now we have a motion that does that with a few of those tweaks. And Mr. Stahl, are you clear on what that means by way of prep for the next meeting?
My understanding is you're looking to consider amendment to the bylaws so they're comprised of membership of no less than 5, no greater than 7 members, with an additional ex officio position that includes the Science Hill High School golf coach. Is that accurate?
Varsity golf coach.
Varsity golf coach. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
And if we're ready for another motion, I'll make the motion for Gabriel Logan and Matt Adams to fill the existing 2 seats that need to be filled.
Sir, are there other? I think we're now ready for a second to that nomination.
I'll second that.
Thank you,
second that, Mayor Wise.
Commissioner Murphy. Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Okay, your next appointments will be to make 2 appointments to the Historic Zoning Commission.
If it pleases the board, I'd nominate Cooper Reeves and Hal Hunter.
I'll
Are
second.
there any others that folks want to propose? If not, we have a motion and a second. Is there objection to calling the roll? All right, Ms. Jennings.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next appointments are consider appointments to the Housing and Community Development Advisory Board. Board has 7 acting members with 2 openings for those who did not reapply for their positions. You have the discretion to appoint as many members up to 21 as you wish to do. Terms are for 3 years and they will be expiring in July of 2023. City residency is required on this board.
If I recall correctly, attendance is hard to get on this board and with the multiple applications, would it be of interest to appoint all of them that have applied for that role? Or does that complicate things as far as making a quorum?
The latter.
Okay. So your recommendation would be to appoint 2?
I would keep it to a manageable number for sure. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I also want to bring it to everybody's attention. There are no women on this board whatsoever. None. And we have 3 applicants, I believe.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first priority.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying there's 3 females, is that right?
Yeah, I was just talking about women.
Gotcha.
1, 2, 3, yes. 4. There's 4.
Well, I would like to make sure Micah Colley gets on this one since we didn't let him on the other one and it's his first choice.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll support that.
I would add Deborah McClaskey. She's certainly given her time to serve in this community, and this, I think, would be a good appointment for her.
And I recommend Padiwa Nashe Mushaya Munda.
Hi, as we like to call him. It's a lot easier.
He's a great guy.
He is.
And do we have one more?
I nominate Lisa Bell.
Okay.
Ms. Jennings, would you review the list? I think we have 4 names at this point.
We do. Micah Colley, Deborah Harley McClaskey, Lisa Bell, and help me out, Mr. Murphy. Pie.
Yeah. You can call me Pie.
And remember that.
Do those reflect, are there other names folks want to put forward? And if not, is there a motion to make the appointments of those 4?
That's a good diverse slate of for this board, and I'll make a motion to approve those 4 as Pie, Micah, Deborah, and Lisa.
Okay, is there a second? Commissioner Hunter. All right, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next is to make 2 appointments to the Industrial Development Board.
I would recommend or nominate Kenny Schaefer and John Smith.
Are there, pardon me, are there any other names folks would like to put forth? Or a second to Commissioner Hunter's motion?
After we vote on this, I do have a question for Mr. Peterson on another member of the board.
Is there a second to the names Commissioner Hunter has noted?
The only thing I would say is Tracy Johnson has just served 1 term and was hoping for a 2nd term. So I don't know anything about Tracy Johnson, so.
I do see her on there, and I know we do try to do 2 terms. I was looking at, again, I guess where we are trying to diversify boards, and I know she serves in many capacities, JCDA, Blue Plum, and others. And so not as in any negative way to her, but to further increase a greater casted net of people within the community to be involved.
Well, we on the last appointment, which these are 2-year appointments, right? 6 years, I'm sorry. So her initial appointment was just in 2019.
Okay, so she wasn't on the full time.
Yeah, so her term is not up. Yeah, I guess it is.
She replaced Michael Green that he, so she's just been on for 2 years.
Well, I would definitely support her for an appointment for her own term. And quite honestly, the next one I want to talk about is Stacy Torbett. But if we remove Tracy and Stacy can't stay in her slot, we would again have no women on this board.
Well, then let's talk. Let's talk about Stacy's position first. Then.
Yeah, I know, Mr. Peterson. We found out, or she was appointed and lived in the place where she lived at the time of the appointment, and then it's just a little bit outside the city limits. So she was notified to say she would have to relinquish her seat. I don't know where that is in the process, but I'm just of the mind to, if we can make an exception and let her finish her seat on the IDB board with no reappointment chance. That would be my position on it.
That's been a while since I looked at that. I believe it's in state statute that the members have to reside in the city. I'll need to double check, but my recollection is, in talking to Sonny, that there's not a lot of wiggle room there. Well, there's Sonny. Sonny, can you help me out there?
Yes, Mr. Manager, you are correct that it's a statutory requirement, that the mandatory requirements for that position requires the person to be a taxpayer within the municipality, and also there's another requirement, but it's a statutory requirement. They have to actually live within the city limits.
A taxpayer
I was
or
gonna ask for
live?
clarification.
That means different things.
And that's why there are actually two requirements with that. So give me just a moment. I'll be able to pull that up to read the language to you.
So if she's going to have to depart, that's another seat that's going to be available.
If that's the case, then why don't we get John Smith, Tracy Johnson, and Kenny Schaefer on there if Stacy has to leave?
I've located it. It's TCA section 753-301. It states that the member must be duly qualified elector of and taxpayer in the municipality.
Does it mean residential taxpayer?
A duly qualified elector.
That means
They
they
have
must
to be
be
registered to vote.
Registered to vote. So that would be with their domicile.
I'm not following. What is a duly elected elector?
That's attached to your address.
They've got to be eligible to vote in city elections. Thus, they have to be a resident of the city. That's just another way of saying you got to be a resident.
But even though from a business standpoint, they may pay property taxes on their business in the city.
They have to be both a resident and a taxpayer. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it may be, Mr. Peterson, if you follow up with Alicia and see where that has come from. It was our mistake in the beginning because we did appoint her and she served for 2 years. Not
should we defer action on the IDB for 2 weeks so that we can get some clarification? Because I hear 3 names being proposed for appointment, but one of those names is being proposed for a vacancy, so they'd be being appointed to a partial term. So we would certainly need to identify who's being appointed as a replacement versus their own terms, for example.
Yeah, I guess my motion would be for John Smith to continue for another term and Tracy Johnson to continue for another term, and then Kenny Schaefer to replace Stacy Torbett if that is which it sounds like we'll have to do that.
Okay, so that's a motion to appoint the 2 current members to their own terms and then a new person to Ms. Torbett's spot. Is there a second?
I will second that and really support the sequence of that. And Kenny Schaefer will be a great member on this board.
Is there any further discussion before we read the roll?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Your next appointments are to make 2 appointments to the Johnson City Housing Authority.
I'm not sure if this gentleman reached out to you, but of all the applicants, he was the only one that was proactive and reached out to me was Wesley Fletcher. And I think he'd be a good asset to that board. And again, he'd be new blood as well to any board.
Yeah, I have met him and very impressed with him as well. I think he's been doing a lot of work with the Housing Authority already as a volunteer. And so I would support that and add their second recommendation of Colin Johnson for reappointment.
I will second that.
The commission ready to call the roll?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
You have 1 appointment to make to the Planning Commission. This is the appointment for the person who lives within the Planning Commission jurisdiction, but outside the corporate boundaries.
Pete?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had misstated that. This is an appointment for someone who does live in the city, and you do have a application for Mr. Uvi.
So this is not the 1101 unincorporated spot.
No, sir.
So what makes the others ineligible?
Yeah, the one that we had earlier, that's what he was applying for. Maybe he didn't. Does this one have to live in the city?
I can't answer that. Sonny,
Well, no, I mean, I think the question is, this is not the person filling the seat that General Harrell once sat in, which is somebody who's in the urban growth boundary, but not a city resident. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is a spot that's open to a Johnson Cityan, which I think then goes to the question, we had an applicant in an earlier, I'm trying to go back and find it, but can somebody help me get to the name? Because I think was it
Mayor, I think we may be looking at this incorrectly, because at the top of the matrix it says there's a special requirement, and then every other applicant is ineligible but are city residents. And I don't know any other special requirements other than the urban growth boundary position.
I think I would be more comfortable if, you know,
Defer.
if
Well,
we defer this until 2 weeks from
Okay.
now and see if we can find the other applicant who, I mean, in fairness to the other applicant, I mean, he didn't get put over here. And make sure that there are no special requirements on this position.
I'm good with that. Do we need to vote on deferring, or can we just push that on?
We probably should, there's a motion to table for 2 weeks. I mean, it looks to me by reading pages 145 and 146 that we actually have 2 vacancies.
One's a city commissioner.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes, I see
And
that.
Todd
All
said
right.
he was going to do that. I'm kidding,
He's
Todd.
going to bump me. He's going to
Yeah.
bump me.
Okay, thank you. So there's a suggestion, I believe, Commissioner Hunter, did you make the motion
I will to table for
to
2 weeks.
table for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
All right.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Brock. Would you call the roll, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
One appointment to the Public Building Authority is next.
Hey, Mr. Peterson, before we get to that, I did have a question. Uvi's an architect, is he not?
Yes.
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 Would he be able to fill that architect role on the Board of Building Codes? Or would he have interest in it?
I don't know that anyone has spoken to him or if he has expressed any interest. In an ideal situation, you'd really like to find someone that does not practice within the jurisdiction.
Okay.
Because they're going to be conflicted if one of their plans becomes in question.
Sure.
My thought, just as a thought to share with the commission, Tony Street just recently retired and is no longer practicing architect here in the city. I'd be glad to reach out to Tony and ask him if he'd have some interest in filling that seat, or if we can think of somebody else that has an architect's license that doesn't practice within the city.
You're talking about on the building codes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good thought, though.
Sorry about the interruption.
You know, on the PBA, I had written down Kenny Schaefer's name on that one too.
Ballot has a current representative on the PBA, and I think there has been some discussion with the former chairman that is there really a need to have two valid representatives on the PBA? In talking to the former chairman, he would really like to work towards getting a female or a minority representative on that board.
Well, I'll nominate Kendra Cook.
She didn't apply for this one.
On the matrix I've got, it looks like she did. But maybe this is incorrect. We're Public Building Authority, correct?
Correct. And her name is in gold on that one.
It's not gold on yours?
It is gold on mine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have that matrix in front of me. I'm just having to read down in it.
Well, we can push this one off for 2 weeks to verify that if we need to, right?
That would probably be a great idea.
Okay, I'll make the motion to table for 2 weeks.
We have a motion to table. Is there a second?
A second.
Second, Commissioner Murphy. Who will reach out to confirm interest in being appointed?
Charlie.
Okay, lucky Charlie. Very good. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Second. Yep.
All right, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Commissioner Brock.
Just one point of clarification, and Mr. Peterson, this is to you. Are there any special experience based that we need for those applicants on the PBA, because it's very business, financial development kind of related?
Yes, ma'am. You really need folks that have an extremely strong background in development, construction, finance, legal matters. I mean, what the PBA's charge is at this point is to develop the 30 acres known as an Innovation Park. And it's going to involve, they're in the process now of hiring a firm to come in and review existing master plans, update them, to hire a engineering firm to do the construction design of roads and utilities. That firm will also be charged with setting architectural standards for the development of the park. And the PBA will also be overseeing the construction of the park when we get to that point in time. So I think it would be, the board and the city would be best served if you could find folks with those types of backgrounds that are very familiar with how all those things work.
They're going to have to hit the ground running as well. This is not a real learning type
yes.
opportunity. Okay, thanks.
I think we had a motion and a second. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Jennings.
You're
And
correct.
let's go ahead and read the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Your next board for appointments is the Senior Services Advisory Council. And Mr. Stahl will be able to answer your questions. He represents the city on that board.
Basically have 11 members. You have 4 new appointments to the advisory council. According to the bylaws, this is one of the bylaws I mentioned earlier. You can have no less than 5, but no more than 14 appointed members, plus the city manager or designee. I'm the designee, and I'm the 15th member of the board. So before you, you have actually 5 interested applicants, and the recommendation from staff is to appoint. Obviously, there's room for 4, and there's 4 listed there.
Was there any feedback from the current board for any recommendations?
Yes, it's the recommended action is the appointment of Maureen Mulroy, Deborah Slauson, Georgita Washington, and Joe Williams to fill the 4 available positions.
I'll make the motion to appoint those recommended.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no objection, Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next is to make appointments to the Senior Center Foundation Board. There are 3 folks that are seeking reappointment, and there are 3 other appointments to be made beyond those that are seeking reappointment.
So there's 6 in all?
Yes.
And I believe we can take all 6. So that's what I would say is let's take the 6 that have applied.
I second that.
We have we have a motion and a second. Is there objection to calling the roll? If not, Ms. Jennings?
I think we should publicly announce the reappointments would be Bill Alvis, Karen Pico, and Justin Young. And the new appointments would be Bo Deaton, Jeff Johnson, and Theodore Eads.
I think those are,
Thank you.
but yes.
The reverse.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I missed that reappointment there.
Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
The next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
Commission, I guess we'll start just in alphabetical order. Commissioner Brock, do you wish to pull anything?
Not a thing, and it's the shortest consent agenda we've ever had, I think.
I think it's, if it's not, it's close. Commissioner Hunter?
No.
Thank you. Whoa, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to stop that. Commissioner Murphy?
No, sir.
All right. Vice Mayor?
No, sir.
All right. And I have nothing as well. If there is a motion to approve the consent agenda,
So moved.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Are you sure?
I want to know who's in the room with him.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second.
And so I had to go to my cell phone, and internet finally popped back up so I can get off.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second and an IT report from John. Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Next is ordinance number 4758-20. An ordinance to amend Title 12 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee regarding adoption of the 2018 International Code Council codes as amended by this ordinance, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, is ready for your consideration on second reading. This is your adoption of the building codes.
Right. Mr. McClellan has been very helpful to us over now several months in getting us to this place. Do you have any comments you'd like to share, or does the commission have any questions they would like to pose?
Have there been any changes since we had this on first reading?
There have not. Everything that's originally proposed remains to be proposed.
Other questions? Okay, we need to do a public hearing. So if there aren't further questions for staff, we can move toward the public hearing. I don't know, do we have anyone who may be waiting to join the meeting to offer public comment?
Not at this time. I just put the screen up though.
Okay, so I know there is a bit of a lag. Do we know how much lag there?
It's usually 20 seconds to YouTube.
Okay. Dave, would you care to regale us with some of the high points while we give people at least sufficient time to call in?
Sure. Basically, it's adoption of the 2018 International Code Council codes, which includes the IBC for the commercial buildings, along with the Appendix D for the fire district, IRC, which is the residential code, along with Appendix Q for tiny homes, the existing building code with a modification to the downtown flood hazard area exception. The 2018 IFC, which is the fire code, along with all of the appendices. There are two modifications to the IFC, accepting public roads as they stand for fire lanes. The second is a 100-foot FDC sprinkler and standpipe connection minimum distance. So that's basically just connecting the building's needs to a hydrant with a fire hose. We've got the 2018 mechanical code with no amendments, 2018 International Fuel Gas Code with one amendment to propose gas lines be placed in separate ditches than water lines. That's just to allow the gas to not fall back into the house and cause hazard. The 2018 Plumbing Code, the 2017 National Electrical Code with wire identification amendment, the coloration of all the wires, electrical disconnect location, which allows disconnect to be easily accessed by emergency crews, and meter disconnect groupings also allows shutdown by emergency crews easily. Lastly, metal sheathing or conduit in several different uses, primarily commercial for wiring. We've also got the International Energy Conservation Code, primarily the 2018, with several others depending on the sections being referenced, including the 09 version, the 2012 version, and the 2006 version, again, depending on the sections referenced. The 2018 Property Maintenance Code with no amendments, and the 2018 International Pool and Spa Code also with no amendments. That's the summary.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone wishing to make comment during our public hearing?
No, sir.
All right, well then we will close the public hearing, and I believe Vice Mayor Fowler, you were in the process of making a motion.
Move for approval.
Have a motion to approve, a second.
I will second.
Thank you, Commissioner Brock. All will go ahead and call the roll.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor, can I say one thing to Mr. McClellan? How helpful it was for me to understand all the codes and the amendments and the appendices. Two things really helped improve that for me. And one is the work that you did with the developers, the builders, and the Johnson City Home Builders Association. And just hearing them in our sessions was really, really helpful. And then the great chart deck you put together for us, I could follow it, made sense to me. And I feel very comfortable that, I'm as informed as I possibly can be on this, but thank you for that.
I appreciate it. That was the goal. Thank you.
And to add to Commissioner Brock's comments, Dave, appreciate you working with, regional building officials as well. And hopefully, they'll come alongside us and work to make a more cohesive and easier building environment in Upper East Tennessee.
I feel the whole region moving towards that, so I'm very hopeful. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Thank you, Dave.
We voted already.
Oh, we did. I'm sorry. We kind of I got myself out of kilter there. I believe then it's back to you, Mr. Peterson.
The next item for consideration is approval of a resolution to establish fair market value for 724 West Walnut Street. This is a piece of property over on West Walnut Street that we have had appraised and identified as being necessary for the Walnut Street redevelopment. This is the current location of the Harmon Ice Company, Ice and Coal Company. And we would, the appraisal is attached, as is the resolution. And we would recommend your approval so that we can start the process of negotiations with the property owner to acquire this property.
Are there
Mr.
questions?
Peterson,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Is the funding of this all out of the stormwater account?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was all my question. Thank you.
Are there other questions of staff? If there are not, is there a motion to take action?
I would move for approval.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Your next order of business is affirmation and adoption of the guiding principles by this city commission as identified in our current 2020-2025 strategic plan. Mayor, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you. I had asked that we revisit the topic of both documents with the new commission, just so that we could keep them fresh and relevant as we transition from term over term. I believe Commissioner Brock, did you have, we had kind of compared notes, and we're not sure that what's in the packet is precisely what we actually adopted 2 years ago. Did you get a chance to look into that further?
I did not. I think, what I would recommend in concept that we certainly on the values, the leadership, the stewardship, people first, integrity and respect. Those are all things. It's the guiding principles that have been, I think, expanded a little bit on here. But in principle, I think this is a great governance model, some guiding principles or governance principles that if we adopt as a commission and we hold ourselves and each other accountable based on these values, then I think we will provide open and transparent leadership for our city.
Thank you. Is there then a desire to take action in reaffirming those documents?
I was kind of hoping that there were spokes on the Johnson City wagon wheel that we talked about somewhere in here, but other than that,
that's a visual. We should do that. Yeah,
we're gonna get that this year, Todd.
Yeah, I would move for approval of our strategic plan to move forward with that.
And the guiding principles.
And the guiding principles backing
All right.
that.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second, but I'll also add on the strategic plan, and we need to get with Keisha on that. I know we have some new pictures of this current sitting commission. So with Commissioner Murphy now on it, that we add the picture of this commission too. And I think as each commission adopts the strategic plan 2 years from now, maybe a new group, that we update it since it's electronic anyway, that people can see the current sitting commission, to add that to the strategic plan.
And then each year we can watch some of us age, new picture.
Right.
All right. So there's a motion and a second from Commissioner Brock. Are any further discussion, or are we ready to call the roll?
I have a comment. I just
Yes,
want
sir.
to thank you, Commissioner Brock, for being inclusive, and I would like to be on that document. For one, you all have done a phenomenal job at putting this together and ensuring that I was well in the loop before joining this team as to what the strategic plan is all about. And so I just want to commend you guys and thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you.
Mayor, I would also, since we're talking about the strategic plan right now, our commitment was after the first of the year, we would be getting back together with our community partners that helped us get the foundation of this plan, and also add the planning commission officers as well in that meeting. So if we can think about when that can be, what we would be doing. I know on the planning commission, they've done a bridge plan and they see exactly how that would fit within our strategic plan, where it would plug in. And so now we've got JCDA with the strategic plan. We have the CVB, we have all the different organizations that see themselves somewhere in this. And so as we go to that next level now, looking at those objectives, and then Pete's been working with his department heads to look at where they plug into this. So, hopefully we wind up with a set of objectives for 2021 that's really going to see some growth and changes in our community. So hopefully we can do that fairly soon.
Pete, I had recollection at one point we had been talking about trying to do that on the 21st, but now when I looked at my calendar, I don't see it there.
I think there have been a couple of dates discussed, but I don't think that we've ever locked into a specific date to do it.
Okay. Can we expedite doing that? Because I know a couple of the stakeholders that we work with are perhaps sort of in a holding pattern, thinking they need to confer with us, and I'd like to get them up to speed and working with us on it.
I'm just wondering too, how well we can do it by Zoom, but I do feel like we need a facilitator to help us, because and set some real goals on what we want to accomplish in that meeting, so that we've got it laid out real succinctly. We can get that information on what we hope to achieve in that meeting and get it to our stakeholders before that. But I don't know what kind of format would work best for what we need to do. Not being able to get together is really hard sometimes. See, I can't hug you guys anymore, so.
That's my favorite part of this pandemic. Not you
Yeah, we just
specifically,
have to,
Commissioner, Brown,
we
but
just have
you
to
know,
do this on the internet.
yeah. So, Mr. Peterson, will you just perhaps you and I can compare notes, but if staff has thoughts or guidance on how to facilitate that, I know the chamber and the CVB and the JCDA and a number of those folks that are critical partners of ours probably would benefit from the time and communication there.
What if we look at maybe that first week of February or something? We have a commission meeting that week, and if we did it on a Thursday, it'd be February 4th.
Would you like for me to determine the availability of a good facilitator and give you dates that they're available, and you could pick the soonest one of those? Would that be a good way of approaching this?
I think so. And I think from the commission's perspective, if you stick to like Thursday afternoons on the weeks where we have meetings, that is generally a pretty safe bet that we're all going to be available.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. We had not yet voted, Ms. Jennings, had we?
We have not.
See, look, I'm staying up with you there. All right, let's call the roll on reaffirming the guiding principles and 2020 to 2025 strategic plan.
Commissioner Brock,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fowler,
Yes.
Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor, this takes us to public input.
Thank you. Do we have anyone? I was not aware of anyone wishing to make comment in public input, but I will open up public input. And if we have anyone, if you could let us know.
There's no one on the line.
All right, thank you. Seeing no one, we come now to the time of adjournment, but before we do, are there any comments commissioners would like to make? And I guess either by way of report of commissions you're on or other items. So Commissioner Brock.
The only thing I would just like to have some further discussion. I know at our agenda review meeting, we talked about moving the meeting time and the scope of that time together. I've thought about it a lot since we were together, and I have found that meeting, and particularly when we're back and we can meet in person, to be a time where the public, when they need to meet with us, it's an accessible time because it is in the evenings. I'm afraid if we just try to do everything by workshop on a Thursday, I mean, right now we have Sis McAdams who would like to come over and talk to us about codes in her neighborhood. And so, I mean, that's really not a workshop item. It is to come and, have some interaction with the commission. And, feedback I get from people about Monday evenings, we're just very accessible, and it's a more relaxed atmosphere where we can have a, good communication. And, it's for those kind of things that is not a formal kind of workshop. It is more informational. And so I just want us to, before we make the final decision on what direction we're going to go, that we think about it real carefully, what we would be giving up. And then the other concern is, I just think with Dr. Fowler and his schedule, it's going to be very difficult for him to do that at a noontime meeting. So anyway, would like to suggest we talk about it more before we make the final decision.
Okay, what do others think?
Again, I think, if we're able to only specifically talk about the agenda on a Monday at noon or whatever we talked about where it met within Todd's schedule, I mean, ultimately, if we've read our packet over the weekend, sent our questions in, had those responded to by, staff, and then we've got follow-up questions on Monday. I mean, that's a 30, 45-minute meeting strictly about the agenda, and that's all it should be. And then I think it's a great idea to parse off anything else separate from the review of the agenda. And, again, I guess my biggest thing is I think we need to have notice prior to. So like this is the first I'm hearing about CIS wanting to come speak to us. So
me too, actually.
And as I referenced on
That's
Monday,
okay. She just called me.
Right.
So, but again, as I referenced on Monday night, there have been so many times where we've had not just members of the community, but people who are in a working role, coming to speak to us about entrepreneurship, either whether it's the Chamber or Founders Forge or TSG. I mean, that's part of their job. So that should fit within a Thursday afternoon workshop. So the majority of what we've seen on Monday nights, that's what that's been. And so the majority of those people should be able to, one, give us notice ahead of time if we set up an environment for them to do so, where they can provide us information ahead of time so that we can, process the information and be prepared to have meaningful dialogue with them about their presentation on a Thursday afternoon prior to our regular televised meeting. And then again, I think we talked about this on Monday night, that this isn't a hard and fast, this is the only way it's going to be. Obviously, CIS, if there's something that needs to be, the majority or the commission involved in a conversation, we can schedule that. But I think, the overall goal is to make the agenda review about the agenda review, make special projects or special topics or whatnot separate from that. And I think it can still be a relaxed environment, but if we could just make that more meaningful by, one, having a heads up on the front end and the ability to, have information ahead of time so that we're not trying to process information as it's being thrown at us, would be a great thing. Now, again, Todd, I mean, and as we get different commissioners throughout, the years going forward, I'm sure maybe Mondays at lunchtime's not going to work and may need to look at something different, but, I'd love for us to try it.
I think with COVID, Monday at lunch while we're doing a Zoom meeting might be okay for 30 minutes. But if we finally get back together, which I pray that we get to be in person and not having to do this all the time, but that would be very hard for me to make it at lunch on Mondays to a meeting. So like I said, Zooming is one thing, but meeting in person was another. And I think we've had a lot of staff that have come and talked to us about a lot of things on Monday nights that, budget times and things. I know, we got meetings all day Thursday for budgets, and some of them we put on Monday night that helped us get through it and not have to be there from 7 a.m. till 9 p.m. on Thursday. So I think we need to be flexible with that. I think, like I said, with COVID, I think the 30-minute, 45-minute Zoom meeting for the agenda review would be okay. But once we get the okay to start seeing each other in person, I think the 6 o'clock on Monday night would probably work better then.
And I guess I would want to just chime in on some of this. We're not talking about anything that's forever and ever, amen. We're talking about something that is for a season. And I think to the Vice Mayor's point, as we talk about, I would agree with Commissioner Brock that the old Monday night meetings had a different feel than a Thursday night meeting, but a Monday night Zoom meeting and a Thursday night Zoom meeting seems strangely parallel to me. I can't tell the difference. And using the example of Sis McAdams, we will find a way to facilitate hearing from those sorts of people and having those meetings. There's a difference between being available for those meetings and collectively locking ourselves into 24 of them in a calendar year. And so that would be my only distinction. All I wanted to make as the presider for the next 2 years was a distinction between the function of agenda review and the function of workshops. And I want to do that with an eye on complying with the Sunshine Law. I don't want us coming into a meeting where it's just sort of a popcorn agenda, where we all sit down and who knows what we'll end up talking about 3 hours from now. And so that doesn't mean we aren't going to talk. It just means when we're going to talk about codes in someone's neighborhood, we're going to know that's what we're talking about before we get there. But with that, I don't know, Commissioner Murphy.
I think it's very important to before you walk in any room, know what room you're walking into. And if just to reiterate, know who's going to be there before I'm there, so I know how to better prepare myself. I'm fine with trying it during a lunch period. If it doesn't work for all of us, let's be mindful of that. And I'm considerate of Vice Mayor Fowler, and we want to we should make ourselves as a team available to him and what works best for all. Because I'm very flexible, and so where he may not be as much. I don't want to speak for Commissioner Brock. I think she's most flexible. I'll get there one day. But
I'm going to stop being so flexible, I think.
She's my role model for flexibility. But those are just thoughts I have. And thank you for asking.
Let me just say one other thing too. The Monday night, it really is a workshop. The Bristol board of the Bristol Council has a workshop session. There have been 4 meetings a month that are fixed meetings for this commission since I came on in 2013, and way before that, this Monday meeting has been in place. So we've all known that. That's what we're signing up for. But also Pete brings us a lot of stuff that comes up that he needs to talk to us. The press is there. It's a public meeting. Anybody can come, for that. We don't always know what he has on the agenda, but I think that's where the flexibility has to come in, that we can do that. My concern is, because as we know that every Monday meeting is not, I don't know of any that we've had that I can recall that was just about talking about the agenda. There were always items that were presented to us or people coming in to talk to us. And I hate to lose that. If we do away with that, now we're going to start scheduling all these workshops on Thursday, which is going to be more meetings. So now we've got the agenda one on Monday, we're going to do by Zoom, and now we've got a workshop on Thursday, and we're always rushing on Thursday when we have those workshops. And then we've got to eat, and we'll be at home for a while, so that'll be all right. But we're always rushing to kind of get through. And so I don't know. Pete says it all the time. If it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. And I just hate to give up that time that, we find as commissioners help us, govern more in a synced manner. So,
and I guess I would just say I didn't find most Monday nights to be particularly helpful to me in governing. To be at City Hall and that's where we're entitled to have a different perspective. But doing a dry run of a meeting on Monday night that we turn around and abbreviate on Thursday, we can have those same conversations here and achieve the same result. None of this is permanent. But I just think there is an opportunity to separate those two issues, and the issues being agenda review versus workshops. And if we're going to have a standing agenda review, I think it makes sense for that to be on Monday. But if the question is, does it make sense to have a Monday night meeting or a Thursday afternoon meeting to deal with a workshop related topic? I would prefer Thursday afternoon. I'm just one person. But even as we've come into this new season of this commission, I don't think I'm the only person on this commission who would relish the potential of at least, a night home with my family while I still have a family in my home. And I'm not going to apologize. You're correct. I ran and I understood this, but I also want to make sure the time I'm spending is most efficient in the context in which I'm spending it. So,
well, not to add to that, Mayor, not to interrupt. I mean, Vice Mayor Fowler brought up a great point. Many of the people that come and speak to us also have young families in our city staff and have to spend, I mean, Sonny's here, Ms. Jennings is here, Pete's here, Charlie Stahl, Bob Wilson. All of these people work, 8 to 5 or whenever they get here to whenever they leave. So for us to, build additional time into their night away from their families as well, when they're already at City Hall and could be addressing these issues with us during their normal business hours, may be something that they also would appreciate somewhat. And again, it's not about doing less, and nobody's saying that we're not going to be open to the public or that we're not going to entertain conversations with companies or businesses or individuals who have ideas or want to speak to the commission as a whole. We're just looking at doing things, looking at doing it differently at a different time. And that's not to say that it would always be at that time. It might be on a Monday night. But if we could break that up, because again, if we're going to run as a corporate functioning board, I can tell you, if my board had me running all over the place on a Monday night with them to this topic and that topic and whatnot, and with no foundation prior to as to what we were going to talk about, and it's kind of you said popcorn, but a shotgun effect or whatever. You don't know what you're going to be walking into. I don't know how long I would be around because it's frustrating. And I think that the board, and I'm not saying that Pete's doing that. That's just how it's felt on some Monday nights that we walk in and there's 4 different people with 4 different topics that I don't see that they were none of them emergencies. They were all issues that either we've seen annually and we know they're coming, we just don't know when they're coming, like retail strategies. I mean, that's not something that couldn't have been made known to us prior to. Or, again, these aren't emergencies. These are things that could be planned, and somebody could call, somebody at City Hall and say, I'd like to get on the agenda or for a workshop or to discuss this program. Lottie Ryan's could do that very easily. And I mean, the things she's been working on for years now. And so it's not something that all of a sudden, we got to drop everything. We can still plan these things out. I think it'll make it more useful. And quite honestly, these people want their issues elevated to be heard by many. And so, especially during the Zoom process, if you look at the YouTube meetings of our Monday nights versus our Thursday nights, the length of time we spend talking on Monday nights is typically greater than the length of time we discuss on Thursday nights. But if you look at the number of viewers on Monday night versus Thursday night, there are more viewers on Thursday night. So we're doing a disservice to the public, in my opinion, by duplicating a meeting where we discuss the majority of it on Monday night in an agenda review, and we know what's going on, but then we talk about it again on Thursday night with less information for the general public. So again, I think, there are a couple of moving pieces here. Right now, we're in the Zoom piece where I think right now to just do an agenda review and just talk about that on Monday would be substantially more useful on a Monday. And then set up a process where if somebody wants to speak to us, just like if they want us to come to a ribbon cutting or they want us to come speak to it at an event, you know, they don't call us the day of and say, we'd like you to do the State of the City address. You know, you get it a month, 2 months ahead, and they say, Mayor, we would love for you to come on this date and speak to our community. And so again, I'll be quiet, but this isn't an opportunity to have less meetings. It's an opportunity to have more useful and productive meetings, in my opinion.
Is there an interest in discussing it further? I mean, from Vice Mayor or Commissioner Murphy?
So I guess my final question is, are y'all willing to commit the time on Thursdays for, workshops? Which should be more, because we'll have to incorporate all the different types of things we used to invite people to come in on Monday night.
I think a lot of us have, I think Dr. Fowler and Mayor Wise have.
I devote the whole day Thursday to city work. So absolutely. Yeah, that's never been the question. And again, I think some of the concerns are couched in the notion that somehow we're taking something away. And I think what we're doing is just sort of rearranging the calendar with and the purpose of those meetings, so everybody knows what we're getting into on the front end. And again, nothing is permanent. The truth is, these Monday night agenda, like we're going to call on historians Pete Peterson and Charlie Stahl. In your years of working with Johnson City, has a Monday night meeting parallel to a Thursday night meeting been the exception or the norm over your 30 years?
Well, I'll speak for myself first. They did not have Monday night meetings when I first started with the city. In fact, Bob Wilson and I were just talking. Originally, city commission meetings here started at 7:30 p.m. And they were the first and third Thursdays of each night. And the city manager back then used to send out, with the agenda, there may be some additional narrative that the city manager provided. Again, this is the pre-internet email days, so there was manual typing going on. So in the agenda packet that went out by the police department to each city commissioner, there may have been a manager's memo on the items on the agenda, but there was no Monday night meeting at that time. They would have workshops from time to time, but nothing formally set other than the first and third Thursdays of each month.
Thank you. Ms. Jennings, were you recalling back? Can you remember back when you were using an abacus and Charlie was using a typewriter?
Actually, tomorrow I will have been here 20 years, so I do still remember 20 years ago.
You started as a kid in high school. You were like one of the Parks and Rec kids. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
It was a high school co-op program or something.
Right.
I wish. So when I started, they were starting at 7 p.m. and we did not have an agenda review meeting, and they went very, very long. Now there were other reasons for that, perhaps, but there was a lot of discussion that transpired during that meeting. It was not uncommon for it to last until 11, 12, 1 in the morning. One meeting was 2 in the morning. Those primarily were when we had some very big projects or budget discussions or something like that. And Pete recalls vividly those long nights as well. The purpose for the Monday agenda review meeting was to try to gain some efficiency for the Thursday night meeting, so it would proceed in a quicker manner and be over. And then it was moved back to 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Try to get everybody out sooner.
The rest of the story, back to Charlie's reference point, at that time, the manager went and met with each individual commissioner to review the agenda. And that's the tradition that I picked up with many years ago. And that would usually take anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week of the manager's time during the week prior to the meeting to go over the agenda. The time you drove to somebody's office and reviewed it. It was actually my idea to have an agenda review meeting because it saved me a lot of time and it was much easier on me. And equally important, each of you heard the same thing at the same time, and it eliminated miscommunication. For a variety of reasons, the topic of miscommunication arose with frequency back in the late 90s and the early 2000s. And I felt it was extremely important to minimize the potential for miscommunication. And I too remember the 7 o'clock starts and we transitioned to 6. I've seen very efficient commissions like this one. And as I was just sharing with Vice Mayor Fowler, I also remember many nights leaving here after a 7 o'clock start about 3 or 3:30 a.m., going home and taking a shower, changing clothes, and being down at WJHL at 6 a.m. to do a TV interview about the previous night's meeting. So it has to do with efficiency and unified communication so that everybody hears everyone else's questions and you hear exactly the same answer to those questions rather than trying to recall 5 different conversations. So that's the history of the Monday night meeting and how we got there.
And I think, Pete, that was a great thing prior to the heavy use of email. But, I think one of the things that we have now is that electronic communication where we can copy everybody. And I think you've been greatly appreciative of, and I know I have, like when I first came on, we would ask you questions that you may not be prepared to answer even on a Monday night, but
because they were surprises.
Right.
Because we got into the meeting and then asked you something.
And so for, as I recognized as I came through, reading the packet and sending you and copying the commission with, my questions allowed you time to prepare answers for Monday night, which makes those meetings go even quicker when in respect to the agenda proper, specifically. And so, I think, with that, the fact that we can email you and say, I read the agenda, I have this question, can you be prepared to speak about that particular issue? And here are my specific concerns to that issue, allows you the time to actually be prepared, just as I'm asking to be prepared when we have guests come speak to us. I want to see their stuff ahead of time, so that I can process it. I don't think it's fair to you or any city staff that we come prepared Monday night and you all have to guess what are these guys and girls gonna throw at us tonight. And because Sonny, you're looking at legal documents and you're looking at Tennessee Code annotated and all these types of things. I would not expect you to, at the drop of a hat, know the answer to any legal question without further research. And I sure as anything wouldn't want you to, shoot from the hip to give me an answer that ends up in resulting in an incorrect statement. And so again, I think just allowing people to have time to prepare is what I'm looking for, which again, I think makes meetings quicker.
I think
with our guests, we end up trying to figure out the situation as we're meeting with them because it's the first time we've heard anything or seen anything. So anyway.
Let me just bring to your attention, and maybe this is where I'm kind of having a little bit of the issue. The Bristol Council has what they call a work session, which is really what our Monday nights have turned into, is a work session as opposed to strictly an agenda review meeting. And so that is to deal with a lot of issues that will eventually get to their council meeting. But that's a fixed time, just like we've had ours all along. So I just don't want to see us losing that time in the way we work together. and work with staff. And then, you know, it's also that really great time that we spend with staff as well, you know, to kind of help those trusted relationships be built. So anyway, just that's my thoughts.
I think we
I've been
can
on the commission
still
a long
do
time,
that.
and it's always worked well for me. So I just don't want to see
I
it.
think we can still do that on Thursday. I think all we're doing is making a distinction between the agenda function and the topic function. Commissioner Murphy, I realize that you've been here for all of maybe a month. And so I'm going to ask you to chime in if you have anything you'd like to say.
Yes, sir. I'll be totally honest. I have not enjoyed Mondays because when I was, you know, from my understanding, it's agenda review, and it's really not. And so I just think we just need to be honest with ourselves. And I think, you know, for Commissioner Brock, you know, it's a working meeting. And so if we need a weekly meet, maybe we need a weekly working meeting, but Monday's not an agenda meeting. And so when I started to come, I'm like, I don't like these agenda meetings because we're really not reviewing agenda. It seems like a lot of randomness, and then taking consideration, I'm a new guy and I'm trying to figure everything out. So, but it's definitely not agenda review meeting on Mondays.
I believe there is a meme of a guy with a stick beating a horse that's dead that might be appropriate to send to each of you right now, but I don't know how to share it. I don't know. I think we're certainly sensitive to that, and I want to respect Commissioner Brock's concerns, and I think that's where Thursday afternoons and early evenings have the potential. I would like to see us do more of our deliberation in our regular Thursday night meeting, and then defer to staff to flesh out the details. And so, you know, certainly I can be overruled by two of you. But so for now, I would say for a season, especially where these meetings are virtually indiscernible, we're all coming to these meetings on Mondays and Thursdays from undisclosed locations. Let's try a different way, and it's not forever and always. So that would be the plan, unless there's a motion and second to do something different.
I think as long as we are flexible, the city staff and people may not be able to come on Thursday when we're meeting. And somebody that wants to come from out of town, maybe Monday night, maybe Tuesday night. Yeah, but we don't need to say this is the only time we're doing that, because that may not fit with other people's schedules. So I just think leaving it flexible would be great. And I think the noon things for agenda review are fine on Zoom. We'll decide what we're doing after we get over this pandemic, where we can get together, and maybe there's another time.
Thank you.
Mayor Wise, I want to clarify myself. When I said I don't enjoy Mondays, it's simply because I don't know what's going on, and I don't know what I'm walking into. And my mind says agenda review. So
well, and when we do a workshop, I would plan to have an actual agenda with topics and guests. And I'm inclined to put a timed agenda together so that if we have 4 people coming and 2 hours allocated, we're equitable in our distribution of time, so that we don't invite 4 people to come and the first person gets 90 minutes of it and the last 3 people get 30 minutes of it. So let's try it, and we can work it and finesse it going forward. I think in the end, what we will find is greater return on our investment in relation to the time we're putting in. And that's certainly my hope. Commissioner Brock, do you have anything further that you'd like to say?
I'm good.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Murphy?
no, sir.
Vice Mayor?
No, sir.
Mr. Peterson?
No, sir.
All right. Well, I guess we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.